As far as legendary Pokemon go, a ground type is pretty rare. The majority of the time you're dealing with either Dragon, Flying or Psychic, which can make some runs feel a little samey. Not with Groudon, however. Minimum battles runs aren't a breeze, but I was surprised how stuck the 3rd gen legendary actually became during a bunch of different points during the game. Just because a Pokemon has a base stat total of 670 doesn't make this a breeze. In fact, the 2 biggest factors working against us in this run are Groudon's typing and its slightly lower special defense. While its sky-high defense will work in our favor during the earlier portions of the game, the further we progress into the story, the more special moves we'll encounter and the more powerful they'll be. Move-wise, Groudon has a lot of potential, but for the early game, we're gonna get a little stuck because hey, we only learn ground moves and our first gym is a flying type. So how's that gonna turn out? We do get important moves like Earthquake and Ancient Power along the way, but a lot of elementally inclined moves rely on a decent special attack where Groudon doesn't really excel, so we may have to rely on some other tactics along the way. A final point worth talking about is Groudon's ability, Drought. As long as Groudon's on the field, then there'll be Sunlight, which is good to counter things like Red on Mount Silver, but also works against us when we come up against grass types or others that can take advantage of the sunlight. With that said, let's check out the rules. This is going to be a solo minimum battles run, which means we can only use Groudon in battle, but we can capture other Pokemon for HM Butler purposes. We can only participate in battles that would stop us from progressing the game. If it's a wild encounter, we have to run away. We can't use items in battle, but held items are fine. This time I won't be doing it so that we have to make it through the Elite Four without saving because you'll find out. So starting things off, as is tradition, I made a poor choice. I chose a Groudon with a relaxed nature, which gives a boost to defense at the expense of speed. I should have waited for a Groudon that had a boost to special defense or a plus speed nature, but hey, we have to live with our mistakes. It's not like it'll make a huge difference, right? We go through the rigmarole of the early game until we battle the rival. I've given him a Totodile. In retrospect, I probably should have gone for a Chikorita to make things that much more difficult early on. However, with access to powerful fire moves, it may have technically been a little easier. Either way, at this level, we can curb stomp Totodile. But on our way to Violet City, I encountered a problem I hadn't even thought of: flying Pokemon. The first mandatory trainer we battle, youngster Mikey, not only has a Rattata, but a Pidgey too. And our only attacking move is Mudshot. So what's the plan here? Well, for this particular fight, we can basically waste all of our PP for Mudshot and Scary Face. Returning to Mikey, the struggle play works, but we're taking an awful lot of recoil damage. We win, but surely that's the only time we'll have to do that, right? In Violet City, Bellsprout Tower can't be avoided, so we'll head to the top floor, fighting the monks along the way. With Groudon's weakness to grass, you'd think the Bellsprout would cause a bit of trouble, but Groudon's Mudshot paired with its high attack makes this place trivial for the most part, because you may well remember that we have to fight the head monk guy who has 2 Bellsprout and a Hoot-Hoot. Mudshot will take care of the Bellsprout, but we can then only use Struggle against the Hoot-Hoot. And remember, while we can battle wild Pokemon, we can't knock them out, meaning we need a safe way to reduce our PP. Thankfully, like we did with Mikey, we can lower our PP against Wild Pidgey and then return. Problem is, you can't use all Mudshot's PP because trying to struggle through all his Pokemon will just get you knocked out. What makes things super annoying is that in the remakes, it takes ages to get access to berries, and an Aurum Berry would have really helped us out early game. Returning a little later with a combination of 3 Mudshot and the help of a crit, we can get past the Bellsprout, use the final Mudshot on a Hoot-Hoot, and then struggle our way to victory. I don't think I've ever had such a hard time before even the first gym in any of these runs, but it's only going to get worse because we have Falkner next. While we can avoid the trainers in Falkner's gym, we can't avoid the man himself. Struggle strats will work for the Pidgey at our current level. If we don't get hit and use Struggle twice, then we'll be left on 20 HP, well 23 after the level up. Then Pidgeotto sent out. That thing has no problem attacking us. Combined with Struggle, yep, this ain't gonna happen. What absolutely sucks about this gen and going forwards is that you take a quarter of your max HP as recoil damage from Struggle rather than 1/4 of the attack's damage. Technically, if we weren't hit, we could use Struggle 4 times, and 4 times wouldn't even be enough to defeat both Pidgey and Pidgeotto. So what are we supposed to do here? I honestly thought the run was done. we can't level up any further. In Gen 2, we'd have to wait to pick up a TM later on, and there are currently no TMs available for us to grab. But unlike in Gen 2, there's a HM, Rock Smash. If Groudon weren't able to learn this move, then we'd be done. It's a double-edged sword though, because yeah, we can learn a move to defeat Falkner, but we're also giving up a precious move slot for frankly a pretty trash move. But we've got no choice. We'll be stuck with Rock Smash until reaching Blackthorn much later in the game. It takes a few retries, but we are eventually able to defeat Falkner and continue with the rest of the game. Upon reaching Azalea Town, I give the rival a go just to see what I'm in for. Of course, Ghastly now has the Levitate ability, and we only have a fighting move and a ground move, so that's a no-go. Groudon will learn Lava Plume and 80 base power special move at level 15, unless our battle with Bugsy, if we can get past him, doesn't take us to that level threshold, the run is over again. And to be honest, we ain't getting past Scyther. It's a flying type, and all we've got is Rock Smash, which is double resistant to. We would have to be getting crazy defense drops to even start putting a dent in Scyther. But as we're trying to build that up, Scyther's just using focus energy to increase its crit rate, then using U-turn and absolutely destroying us. Shall we try struggle again? I guess. And what makes that more difficult is because while we can waste mud shots on Spearow outside of Azalea Town to drain our Rock Smash PP, we can only encounter Hoppip who double resist the move. And even then, we can only use one Rock Smash per Hoppip, while we are forced to save between each battle in case we get crit. It was an experience. And as you might expect, it don't work. There's that water recall damage coming along to dash our hopes and dreams. We literally have no new moves available, right? Well, there was one move, but I was convinced it required us to take a battle. In Union Cave, towards the northwest, there's that fire breather by the stairs. I was sure that he'd proc a battle. Turns out that he doesn't. You can scoot right past him. That's exactly what we did. We grabbed the TM and returned to Bugsy with an actually effective move. Rolling into battle with Rock Tomb against Scyther trivializes the fight. It'll go down to just one of those. It will then one-shot the Metapod, allowing us to level up and learn Lava Plume. Kakuna can be the first Pokemon to get grilled before we head over to the rival. Honestly, we could have battled either Bugsy or the rival after getting Rock Tomb, but with Ghastly's Curse and Croconaur's Water Gun, I thought I'd take the easy wins where I could find them. At level 15, we can use Lava Plume against Ghastly for a one-shot. Then, for Croconaur, it'll mostly focus on using Scary Face after using Water Gun. That really doesn't do much damage. Much like Scyther was, Zubat's also rather easy, and we're ready to head to Goldenrod. In theory, Whitney shouldn't be an issue. We're so defensively bulky and have great attack that even Miltank shouldn't be a problem. I know I said that Rock Smash was useless, but this battle manages to slightly redeem the move because it's super effective against normal Pokemon. By relying on Rock Smash for both the Fairy and Miltank, even a Super Potion from Whitney won't save it, we're easily able to flatten both her Pokemon. We have to go a rather circuitous route to avoid battles and swing back round to Violet City and approach Sudowoodo from the east. It's a shame because we miss out on a TM like Dig and have basically forfeited access to the useful Quick Claw held item. The rival is waiting for us in the Burn Tower. Though he's brought a few new friends on board, we have the move depth to deal with him pretty easily. We'll still rely on Lava Plume for Ghastly, which remains a one-shot. For Croconaur, it's still rather use Scary Face. I'm assuming it's a response to us using Rock Tomb and lowering its speed. Ice Fang can put up some good numbers, but it's not enough to stop us from KOing it. After deliberating a little too much, we decide to go with Hammer Arm and overwrite Rock Tomb. Zubat will go down to a Lava Plume. For the final Magnemite, we'll put the newly learned Hammer Arm to use and one-shot it. I'm not sure how Morty's gonna go. We can only use Lava Plume and our special attack ain't great. Morty sends out the Gengar first, which doesn't have a Dream Eater in this version, thankfully. Lava Plume does about half, but it's got berries, so recoups a little HP. It looks like it's gonna take another 2 Lava Plumes to knock it out, but Morty will then use a Hyper Potion to take us right back to the start. However, we can take a Shadow Ball pretty well and end up knocking out Gengar eventually. The rest of Morty's team aren't much to write home about. They'll all go down to just 1 Lava Plume and we've collected another badge. It's crazy how there was this relatively large difficulty spike all the way up to Bugsy, and it was solely because of the lack of moves available for Groudon. Now that we've achieved a bit of a rhythm, I'm not expecting Chuck nor Jasmine to give us too much of an issue. Chuck's a battle where we see the effect of Groudon's Drought ability. Along with empowering fire moves, It also reduces the effectiveness of water moves, a weakness of ours obviously. Now Chuck's most dangerous Pokemon, the Poliwrath and its Surf, have had their fangs filed down a little bit, but it's not exactly made the battle a free pass. We don't outspeed the Primeape, and Lava Plume will do over half damage, but after taking one hit, Chuck will then pivot to his Poliwrath. Poliwrath generally likes to put its opponent to sleep and then use Dynamic Punch, and while Surf is weaker, it's still causing Groudon a fair bit of hurt, so generally avoiding getting put to sleep would be optimal. Unfortunately, if you wanted a berry capable of doing this, you'd have to spend your time smashing rocks, with the most optimal place being right here in Cianwood. But then we'd be ferrying back and forth between here and the berry guy, so I just decided to stick it out. Against Primeape, even though he goes first and uses double team, our Lava Plume hits and scores a crit. We level up to 26 just before Poliwrath sent out. I went for the Rock Smash here, hoping to mitigate some ranges and then get a 2-shot. After this, however, Poliwrath's shaving around a third of our HP, so it looks like it's going to be pretty close. I then go for another Rock Smash. It barely does anything, but as long as we survive a turn, no hypnosis, we should be okay. This is because we're going to use Hammer Arm, and after those 2 defense drops, even though we get a crit, it doesn't matter. Jasmine is barely worth talking about. Lava Plume's our best move because their special defense is generally poorer than their physical for steel types. We can just sit there with Groudon lounging in the sun and spamming Lava Plume to basically melt her entire team. Our next significant battle after dealing with all the rockets is going to be against Pryce. We do have some effective moves, unfortunately so does Pryce's Pokemon with their ice attacks. The battle's made more annoying by the fact that between Hammer Arm lowering our speed and Seal's Icy Wind doing the same, while it's hailing, we're setting ourselves up for a bad time when Piloswine sent out. The majority of times we're able to make it past Seal, but the combo of hail chip damage, its attacks, and ability to rest makes the entire battle drag on. So then when Dugong's out, just a couple of Aurora Beams will knock us out. We need some more powerful moves. Good thing Groudon can learn quite a few. Bad thing, I chose the wrong move in Thunder. I should have chosen Solar Beam because it's double effective against all of Pryce's Pokemon and there's no low accuracy. Not the smartest play. And what's even less smart is that in Harsh Sunlight, Thunder's accuracy is reduced to just 50%. Just a terrible play all around. I think I'd forgotten that Solar Beam was a 1 turn in the sun, which stopped me from even considering it. Like, the battle's possible of course, it just took a bit of time. But that's on me. The Seal will finally get a hit with Thunder and it will one-shot the thing. Then when Dugong's out, while we do get the first hit with Thunder and even paralyze it, we're then hit with an Aurora Beam and still aren't doing great damage. Obviously, this means Pryce is then going to heal. I go for a Rock Smash to mitigate the range a little bit, but then next turn, we miss with Thunder, only for Paralysis to come in and save the day before we get hit the next turn. The only saving grace for Piloswine is that we can switch from using Thunder to Lava Plume. Can't believe Groudon doesn't naturally learn Fire Fang or something. Lava Plume will take Piloswine past the halfway mark. It's healed by its berry, but we got the burn to proc, taking it back under again. We then get the miss with Blizzard that would have definitely taken us out. Next turn, we just have to use Lava Plume to KO the Piloswine and bring a close to a battle that was definitely made more difficult by my own stupidity. Let's hope Clair's a little better. We've leveled up a fair bit by the time we've reached Clair's gym level 38. However, we don't exactly have a decent move against any other Pokemon. Theoretically, Groudon can learn both Dragon Claw and Dragon Pulse. The latter you get from Clair after beating her, the former can be acquired through a pickup in the world later on, or via the lottery in Goldenrod on a specific day. And I wasn't going to adjust the clock, so we just have to get through this ordeal without it. We chose Thunder in part because of the upcoming battle with Clair for Gyarados in an attempt to save some scratch. While it will one-shot the Gyarados, getting it to hit can be effort to say the least. While we can simply reset to get the hit off against Gyarados, having our attack lowered ain't helpful, and if we defeat Gyarados, Clair will then switch straight into Kingdra. It's got moves like Water Pulse which are super effective, and we can't output enough damage to put a reliable dent in it, if we hit at all. It didn't take too long to realise that this just wasn't happening again. Dragon Claw would have been super useful for this battle, but I wasn't in a position to pick it up. I did have a backup plan though, and I was hoping it could see me through the rest of the game. Gone is the casino in Goldenrod, replaced by the game corner where you can play Voltorb Flip. Kind of like Minesweeper, you basically want to uncover everything but the Voltorbs and progress to the next level, therefore increasing the number of coins that you can claim. The game's fun, sure, but not when you just need to grind through it in order to get the TM you want. And we want Swords Dance, which is 4,000 coins. And it takes time and a little bit of sanity, but we eventually acquire enough coins in order to head back to Clair. The plan now is to set up Swords Dance against Gyarados in order to sweep the remainder of Clair's team. It's easier said than done, however, as Thunder's just 50% accurate. Not only that, because Kingdra is faster, we also need enough HP in order to tank a hit from it. Alas, this plan ain't working. In between the misses and Gyarados getting in 2 hits, we're just not surviving long enough. A while back I said the berries were annoying to get, and that's true. What's more frustrating than smashing dozens and dozens of rocks to get an item is that when you eventually get a shard, it may not even be the one you need. What we want is a yellow shard in order to swap it for a citrus berry, which will restore 30 HP. Theoretically, with this equipped, we should have a chance. Now, when we roll into battle, we still need to set up that Swords Dance on turn 1. We can't afford any more than that. Then on the next turn, Thunder has to hit. If it does, the berry activates and restores HP in the process. We could be in with a shot at the king. At 87 HP, we make it through to Kingdra, and because we're not within 1-hit KO range, it'll switch to Smokescreen instead. While it does hit, we not only hit on our next turn, but score a crit, sweeping right through it. With Clair's biggest threat out of the way, and with that Swords Dance having been set up, we can now sweep through her remaining 2 Dragonair. None of them outspeed, and we are easily able to OHKO them. Kind of an awkward, very specific battle, but I definitely think the crit made life easier. I reckon we could have made it through without it though. I'm used to Gen 2, so I always expect we can hop right into the Elite 4, but the Kimono Sisters are waiting for us. Depending on the type of run you're doing, this battle can be extremely difficult because you are in essence facing 6 Pokemon in a row with no way to heal in between. If you get statused in between those matches, and it definitely happens, that's basically your run over. Good thing we have some tools at our disposal, but moves like Swords Dance are most effective when you only need to set it once and then forget about it. If we approach this battle by setting up first turn each fight, then it's a recipe to get bodied. In the end, the best strategy is to just get as many powerful hits in as quickly as possible. Despite Umbreon's bulk, we are able to 2-shot it with Earthquake. Stab and that awesome attack really carry us here. For the next evolution, Espeon, while it's less defensively strong, it will outspeed us and pop off a Psychic. Earthquake will then 1-shot it, but we're at 54 HP with 3 Pokemon left. Next is the Flareon, a Pokemon we're actually effective against. We will outspeed it and can use Earthquake to knock it out. With the Sun out, it'll also power up its moves, or it usually goes for Will-O-the-Wisp, which can be a run killer. The penultimate Pokemon, Jolteon, is probably a little less trivial than Flareon because it will outspeed us and knows Double Team, which is the only move it can really use. While it will pop one off, our Earthquake doesn't miss and we will make this a 1-shot. Unfortunately, the Kimono Sisters have saved their deadliest Pokemon for last, Vaporeon. Again, Solar Beam would have been the better option here, I reckon, and even if we get Thunder to hit, all the evolutions tend to be bulkier than your average Pokemon, so it may not even OHKO the thing. With that in mind, I don't even go for Thunder and instead just use Earthquake. All we need it to do is over half, which it does, and then tank a Surf, which we do on just 7 HP. Should have probably had another Citrus Berry there, but the sisters don't have potions, so we've wrapped up the battle and come away with the win. There's not a ton of prep required before facing off with the Elite Four, but I know we're in for potentially quite a rough time. Our lowered speed and higher defense, which really doesn't matter as much at this point, is only going to worsen as the run continues. So let's talk about Will. His first Xatu is able to be one-shot with Thunder, so you can potentially just keep resetting until that hits. If you take it out, you'll then be met with Jinx, but here's a real problem. It outspeeds us and it likes to use Lovely Kiss, which will put us to sleep. Then it'll switch to Psychic and we just can't stand up to that sustained damage, even if we do wake up. Because will field the Slowbro next, while it's happy to spam Curse, it'll eventually switch to Psychic because Groudon's just been sat there missing with all those Thunders. You could take the chance and switch it up to Swords Dance, but it'd basically just be for the Slowbro because it's useless against the other Xatu, and we have more effective moves for Executor, and Executor has Hypnosis too. The first order of business, for us at least, will be taking sleep out of the equation. The only option available to us is hunting for a blue shard, which nets us a chesto berry, allowing us to wake up from sleep. Okay, so after an eternity smashing rocks, we can give the Will Rodeo another shot. A little before this, however, I did toy with another strat. I went and played some more Voltor Flip in order to get Thunderbolt. However, against Xatu, it's not quite making the range like Thunder obviously would. Well, could a magnet solve the issue? Nope, wasn't helping either. Plus, having the magnet equipped meant we couldn't equip a chesto berry. Anyway, I did a bit of experimenting until I came up with a passable battle plan. We kicked the fight off with using Lava Plume. This is so Will doesn't have a chance to heal Xatu. We'll end up taking a hit, but can then knock it out with another Lava Plume or Thunderbolt. Of course, we've got the Jinx next, and I don't think Carbos would have helped us out here. So it'll put us to sleep with Lovely Kiss, Chesto wakes us up, and then we use Earthquake to knock it out. Thunderbolt was mainly for the Slowbro with no chance of missing, and as long as Slowbro doesn't use Amnesia, this can be a 2-shot. Unlike Thunder, we're also not putting it in healing range. Next for Executor, and we have the Sunlight to thank for this, but Lava Plume will OHKO the Pokemon. Now Will just has his final Pokemon left, Xatu number 2. Just as we did with the first one, the plan stays the same. What happens this time, however, is that when Xatu moves first, it uses Confuse Ray. We don't hit ourselves in confusion the first turn and do good damage, there's the berry heal, but the next couple of turns we're slapping ourselves in the face while Xatu's just focusing us down. Left on 3 HP, Groudon clutches out a Thunderbolt and we somehow make it through. Unlike Will, for Koga we've got a decent matchup on our hands. A combo of Lava Plume and Earthquake plus a Swords Dance if we need it should hopefully be enough. Against Koga's first Pokemon, the Ariados, I contemplated going for a Swords Dance, but settled on a Lava Plume for the one-shot. Fortress can be a huge pain in a bunch of runs because it's just so damn bulky, but with a decent enough bio move it becomes a breeze even if it's throwing up a Protect. I'm used to seeing the Muck next, but Koga sends out the Venomoth instead, but just like the other two, Lava Plume will do the job here too. Now we finally see that Muck, and props to Groudon's beastly attack because it just tears straight through the thing with a one-shot. Finally, Koga's got the Crobat. We're not going to outspeed it, so of course it's going to start setting up Double Team. Thankfully our first Thunderbolt hits, thank God we didn't have Thunder, and it just does a little over half. One more and we're good. Even though Crobat throws up another Double Team, Groudon comes through again to knock it out, and that is a first try victory. Can't say that about Will though. For Bruno, I figured the smartest option, given we don't really resist fighting but have great defense, was to set up a Swords Dance or 2 and just sweep. Bruno's first Pokemon, the Hitmontop, with Dig being resisted, will typically stick to trying to get a counter off, but because we're out here setting up a couple of Swords Dances, it'll never even get the chance. When we do eventually attack, there's no way that thing is surviving. With that done, the battle is basically over. Hitmonlee will outspeed and use Swagger. We could have had a berry for that if we really needed it, but that's kind of just overkill at this point. But we manage not to hit ourselves in confusion at any point and just simply sweep through his entire team. We may become a little unstuck against Karen though. My thinking is that while we can set up on Umbreon, if other Pokemon are able to outspeed and attack or status us, we may be in for a bad time. Against the Umbreon, I choose to go for just one Swords Dance because her other Pokemon, aside from Houndoom, won't really be affected by our moves anyway. With Umbreon down, Vileplume is the one that's going to be sent out next, which is pretty rare. I'm a little skeptical whether Lava Plume with our special attack and its decent special defense will actually defeat it, even with Sun out. But won't you just know it, Vileplume outspeeds us and then uses Stun Spore. For the remainder of the battle, we are unable to attack while Vileplume goes for Petal Dance, and that is GG. The very next run through, I managed to make it all the way back to Karen. I've got the Cherry Berry equipped for Paralysis. We set up that Swords Dance and one-shot Umbreon. Of course, we know who's up next. There's Vileplume. Feel free to use Stun Spore. And nope, it's Petal Dance, and it crits, destroying us. Fantastic. Okay, third time is gonna be the charm. The only good thing is that Will has become pretty consistent and Koga and Bruno aren't even worth thinking about. The game plan has not changed. We've got the Cherry Berry. We'll be setting up Swords Dance and then switching to Earthquake once again. All right, all good. Okay, here's the Vileplume. Petal Dance again, Stun Spore, and it misses this time. We'll take it. And yet, as predicted, that Lava Plume ain't gonna quite make range, leaving Vileplume in red bar. Maybe we should have taught Fire Blast instead, but I was skeptical about the lowered accuracy. However, next turn, Karen uses a full restore. Our next Lava Plume, much like the last, won't KO it, but instead of continuing with Vileplume, Karen then pivots into Houndoom instead. Okay, well, we may not outspeed, but it shouldn't be able to KO us even with the sun out. Houndoom then goes for Nasty Plot, and yep, that will do it. Earthquake will destroy Houndoom. Karen then fields Vileplume again, and it uses Petal Dance, which does some huge damage to us. Our Lava Plume will definitely knock it out, but Karen still has Gengar and Murkrow left, and it's Gengar out next. I don't want to see Curse, and we get Spite instead. Problem is, that zapped all our PP, and I don't think Thunderbolt can put up the same numbers. Next turn, Gengar misses its Focus Blast. Don't think it really would have done too much damage, but I'm proven right about Thunderbolt, because it leaves Gengar in red bar. We get the Paralysis too, but I'm expecting a full restore instead of that, and with the speed drop, we are able to move first with Thunderbolt and knock it out. Finally, we've got Murkrow. While it doesn't suck as much as it did in Gen 2, it has bodied the Pokemon on some other runs with Sucker Punch. In this instance, Thunderbolt will send it straight to the nearest KFC. Lance, in my head, this battle's simple. Teach Groudon Dragon Claw, get off a Swords Dance, sweep the entire battle. Is that going to happen? Let's find out. First off, Gyarados not only has moves that we're weak to, but its Intimidate cuts our attack, making Swords Dance even more mandatory than before. However, we won't be setting it up on Gyarados. Instead, we'll go for Thunderbolt just to get it out of the way. Leveling up to 48, Lance will send out a level 49 Dragonite next. I'm guessing it's the Blizzard one. We want to set up Swords Dance, but Dragonite outspeeds with Blizzard, and that is half our HP gone. Even though we've set up that Swords Dance and could probably KO it, it's not looking good. My fears are confirmed the next turn when that Blizzard hits again and we are KO'd, so not great. Yeah, we could maybe set up on a Gyarados, but I'm thinking its Waterfall will just cause too much damage. It won't matter anyway, because basically all his other Pokemon are going to outspeed and attack us first, so we're done. If I could go back and change Groudon's nature, that'd be nice, but we're unfortunately stuck with the one we've got. In between repeatedly trying the Elite Four, I went and picked up what Carbos and Calciums I could in an effort to mitigate some of the ranges on Will and hopefully give us just a little bit more speed. However, just getting back to Lance was an ordeal in itself. Either Will was cutting our journey short or Karen was. I spent about an hour just getting walled until I eventually got back, and it was at this point, with how much of an unknown Lance was going to be, I wasn't going to have like one attempt every hour. I just decided to save when I'd finally managed to beat Karen. With that in mind, at our current level of 47, I just wanted to experiment to learn some more about how we're supposed to overcome this obstacle. I tried to get everything I thought I needed because there is no going back from here. At this level, Ice Fang will do decent damage, but it won't take us over half. This does allow us to set up a Sword Stance on Gyarados and then KO with Thunderbolt, but when Dragonite comes out, I find out that those instances when Blizzard did less than half was more of a low roll than I thought. Okay, what about if I just decide to use Dragon Claw to know how much damage we need to do? Well, with our attack drop, Dragon Claw will only do half against the level 49 Dragonite. Not good enough. We can't be taking hits from, well, anything really. On the single occasion I made it past Dragonite because Lance had used a potion, allowing me to set up a Sword Stance followed by Dragon Rush, we get the level 50 Dragonite. What's interesting here is that we actually outspeed it. I don't know if it's a speed tie or something else. Anyway, this allows us to knock Dragonite out. Then we see the second level 49 Dragonite, but this one can outspeed us. Maybe some kind of strange EV distribution, who knows, but it hits us with Dragon Rush, leaving Groudon on just 1 HP. Even though we hit with Dragon Claw and that's an Oko, we're not surviving. If Charizard somehow doesn't finish us off, Aerodactyl certainly will, and it's going to be Charizard. There was one more trick that I had though, and I was actually pretty frustrated after using it because it meant I wouldn't have needed to save. But this run's been filled with a bunch of regrets so far, so what's a little more, eh? The secret ingredient was rare candy, literally just 3 of them. I'm always hesitant to use them because I know how much of a challenge red is, and you need every ounce of XP that you can gain in the game, but at level 50, the battle becomes trivial because Groudon now outspeeds all of Lance's Pokemon, save for the Aerodactyl. So we head into battle. Against Gyarados, I debate on the Sword Stance, but just keep things simple and hit it with Thunderbolt. Now, when that level 49 Dragonite's out, we'll use Sword Stance. It goes first. This was the speed tie I was thinking about. Its Blizzard does a ton of damage, but there's the full restore next turn. Anticipating this, we've used that other sword stance, and then when we go for Dragon Claw, we hit first and knock out the Dragonite. Lance's level 50 will then go down to just a single Dragon Claw. It's the same with the other level 49 Dragonite, and we go first this time. Even when Charizard's out, it's not quicker than Groudon, who lays it down. Finally, with Aerodactyl, while it's quicker, its best move is Aerial Ace, which does barely anything, letting us finish the battle with a final Dragon Claw. We're now the new champion. Victory was a little bittersweet, but it was all thanks to Sword Stance that we were even able to make it through, to be fair. But for Kanto, we are in for a bit of a mixed bag, including a gym leader who even ended up being harder than Red, if you can believe it. Knowing that we have a few potentially harder battles standing in our way, it makes the most sense if we start with the easy wins. Right when we hop off the SS Aqua in Vermilion, we've got Surge waiting for us. You don't have to battle anyone in his gym, you just need to be careful with which switches deactivate the gate. All Surge's Pokemon will go down to a single Earthquake, even the Electabuzz, which tends to be a little bulkier than the other members of his team. Next up, I decide to target Sabrina. My thinking is that we should be strong enough to mostly one-shot her team, even if they manage to outspeed us on a few occasions. While her Espeon is quicker than us, it decides to go for Calm Mind first. Our Earthquake takes it into Red Bar. I know the heal's coming, so go for another Sword Stance, more for Espeon than the rest of her team. Next turn, Espeon uses Psychic and misses. Oh yeah, I think I had the Bright Powder equipped when fighting Lance before. Anyway, that probably would have knocked it out, but lucky for us, it didn't, and we can knock out the Espeon instead. The rest of the battle's kind of weird, and where the AI is its own worst enemy, because our attack's really high, and Alakazam probably wouldn't OHKO us. It instead uses Reflect to raise its defense, but our attack's just so high, we can scythe right through the Alakazam. And it's a similar story for Mr. Mime, who'd rather go for Light Screen than attack us. From here, I decide to take care of the main quest of restoring power to the power plant so that we can unlock the rest of Kanto. I'd fight the trainers just north of Nugget Bridge so we can gain some extra levels, but I'm not so confident we'll do well against Misty, so head over to Brock in Pewter instead. We have a decent matchup here, so I just set up a couple of Sword Stances on the Graveler and then use a combination of Earthquake and Dragon Claw for his remaining Pokemon, so pretty standard stuff. Now, instead of Misty or Blaine or Janine, I think taking on Erica's the smart play, and boy was I wrong. I was like, I have Lava Plume, that'll be enough, but her team is like the perfect counter to Groudon. Her first Pokemon, Jump Fluff, we can deal with. Tanking a Giga Drain's fine after setting up a Sword Stance. Then we'll just use Dragon Claw, right? But when Erica sends out Tangler, things go downhill pretty quickly because that little ball of noodle grass is pretty bulky and Dragon Claw ain't doing the damage it really needs to. So it's getting in moves like Giga Drain and Ring Out, and by the time we finally defeated it, we're on 28 HP with Bellossom up next. Blossom's quicker than us, goes first with Giga Drain, and we're done. So after trying it a couple of times, I was like, we can battle some other gym leaders and just come back later, it'll be fine. So I start off with heading to Fuchsia to take care of Janine. We just need to set up one Sword Dance, probably should have done two to make Weezing a one-shot, but even with its self-destruct, we have no problem making it through the rest of the team pretty unscathed. To make life easier, I decide to hit up Blaine next. The Sunlight will make his Pokemon moves pack a punch, but as long as we go first, which we will do for Macargo and the Magmar, it's all good. While his Rapidash is quicker than us, it does miss with Overheat, which has a lower accuracy anyway, so I don't think we were really relying on the Bright Powder a whole bunch there. Misty took a couple of attempts just to figure out the timings with Sword Stance. You're best setting it up on the Golduck and taking a few hits before relying on Dragon Claw to basically do the rest of the work in the fight. Her Starmie can be a pain because it's quicker, and if you're on low enough health, it'll sneak in there first with a Water Pulse, but sweeping the Pokemon before that will just solve that problem. Now, however, there's no more time we can spend dancing around Erica. We are level 57 now, so not a ton higher than before, but I'm hoping it's gonna be just enough. Unfortunately, we're still running into the same problems. We're not doing enough damage to Tangela, so it's sucking away too much of our HP, allowing Blossom to just roll up and finish us off. After attempting the battle again and again, I decided to switch in Fire Blast for Lava Plume. It's effective against the Jump Fluff, but it means we're not setting up any Sword Stances. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention that all of her Pokemon, bar the Jump Fluff, have the Chlorophyll ability, which doubles their speed stat in Harsh Sunlight, so we're obviously never going to outspeed any of them, making tanking hits all the more necessary. With all the combined damage they're able to output, we literally cannot get past them if they all manage to get a hit in. So what is the plan? What can we do? The sunlight's out and it is harsh. If only we could make the sun go away. Hey, it's Sandstorm. You can buy it from Celadon, I think, but we got ours from the old lady in the house where you come out of Johto Falls. I just picked it up on a whim back then. Never thought I'd even have to use it, but here we are, and it's what makes this battle even possible. Now when we enter battle, we want to set up Sandstorm first turn and hope that Jumpfluff decides to use Leech Seed and that it misses. We get the luck this time around, but didn't on the previous ones, which allows us to then use Fire Blast, which is only 85% accurate, remember? But what's super annoying is that Erika's Pokemon have Sunny Day, and as soon as you use Sandstorm, next turn they're going to want to bring out that sun. So you're getting this back and forth of having to pivot to Sandstorm and hope they choose not to attack or miss, or just don't feel like setting it up again. Well, this works out with Tangler because without its ability we cannot outspeed it. What's a pain about Blossom is that because it's got good special defense and the sun's not out, Fire Blast won't be an OHKO anymore. So on its turn, it'll use Sunny Day, meaning it gets to go first the next turn. We get hit with a Solar Beam, taking us down to 71 HP, but we've then used Sandstorm. Now that we outspeed, we can go for Fire Blast next turn, thank god it hits. So that leaves us with just one Pokemon remaining, Victory Bell. We've just got one Fire Blast left. We have to hit, or it is a reset. We line up Fire Blast. We do outspeed Victory Bell, Fire Blast hits, and it does one-shot it. Take a breath, it's over. Now we've just got the two hardest trainers in the game remaining. Blue's annoying for a number of reasons. The first is that his Executor is able to outspeed us. Normally it loves to go for Trick Room, and that's often an instant reset. It using Hypnosis may be even worse. When Hypnosis misses, we may have a chance. In the first battle, we get a crit, but Executor also has Leaf Storm, and that thing is an OHKO. Doesn't even need to be a crit. Okay, firstly, let's deal with Leaf Storm. The reason I also give some of my money to Mama is that she can pick up some pretty decent items, and she often picks up the damage reducing berries. In this instance, we want to use the Rindo Berry, which will lessen the damage of a super effective grass move. Now, instead of outright destroying us, Leaf Storm will just do a hell of a lot of damage instead. Then, as long as we hit it with a Fire Blast, we can take it out, but then you've got Gyarados next. Thunderbolt will still one-shot this thing, but its Intimidate is where the problem lies, because if you OHKO Gyarados, Blue will then send out Arcanine next, and that Pupper has Intimidate too, so our attack's been dropped by 2 whole stages. Not only will Earthquake now not knock it out, but we've basically powered up its Flare Blitz attack, which will knock us out. Perfect. Time to think again. Well, technically Leaf Storm is a 90% accurate move, which means it has a chance to miss, and that Bright Powder, which lowers the opposing Pokemon's accuracy by 10%, has been putting in a shift so far, so why not rely on it a little longer? Executor's up first, so it's not too tedious to just keep resetting until we get the miss and our Fire Blast hits. Then we just have to set up on the Arcanine, I guess. So let's give it a whirl. First off, against Executor, this is an occasion where we see that Leaf Storm miss, off to a great start. Fire Blast comes in, it hits, and that'll take out the Executor. Gyarados is up next, and we're taking that attack drop, no problem. Thunderbolt is double super effective, so we'll get the job done, and we don't take a hit. Arcanine's coming in now. There's a second Intimidate, no problem. The strat now is to firstly hit it with an Earthquake, it'll use Flare Blitz. With the recoil, it'll then force Blue to heal it next turn. This is when we use that Sword Stance. Now I'm guessing it was a speed tie because we then get to go first and our Earthquake will knock it out. Next up is the Rhydon, and I deliberate for a moment because I know that Earthquake ain't gonna knock this thing out. It is all defense all the time. I choose to tank an Earthquake from it, which does barely anything, leaving us on 40 HP. Next turn, it's time for us to unleash our Earthquake, and that will OHKO it, so it's going well so far. Machamp is sent out next, and is it going to outspeed us? Nope, it does not, meaning we'll have another one-shot please. Blue's onto his last Pokemon, the Pidgeot. What can that thing really do against us? We use Thunderbolt, and it's doing over half, which is good, because we'll just need one more, and there is Air Slash, and we are done. Right, so maybe let's try it again and hope that was just because of the damage ranges? Alright, we know the story. As long as Leaf Storm misses and Fire Blast hits, we are all good against the Executor. Gyarados is going to Intimidate, and we're going to hit it with a Thunderbolt. It's going to knock it out. Then, for Arcanine, we're going to get that other Intimidate, but that's all part of the plan. Next turn, we're setting up that Sword Stance first before hitting it with an Earthquake to now make it a one-shot. All good. And it's the same story for Rhydon too. We're going to set up that Sword Stance. We'll defeat Rhydon before we get Machamp next. This will go exactly the same as last time because it won't outspeed us and we will be able to sweep it. Okay, Blue's final Pokemon, Pidgeot. I was thinking this time around because the sun's out, gun's out, why not just go for a Fire Blast, hit and hope? Well, we end up getting off the Fire Blast and the Burn too, and it looks like maybe it's doing around the same sort of damage, but then there's Air Slash and we managed to hang on just 7 HP. But I think that's it. I reckon our next Thunderbolt will KO Pidgeot, so we give it a shot and yeah, that's the battle. Blue's defeated. There's just one more trainer standing in our way, but there's one glaring problem we've got, and it overshadows everything else. Obviously, we're not trying this at our current level. We're going to go around and hoover up any remaining rare candies in the world and force feed them to Groudon. That's one thing taken care of. Unlike in the Rayquaza run, see, I done said it right, the fact that Groudon has Drought isn't as important as you think. Well, why? Simply because Red's team is too powerful. He will have no problem destroying us, Blizzard or not. Pikachu can barely do anything to us, sure, but it's the rest of his team. At our level, Blizzard's a one-shot, Hydro Cannon's a one-shot. Because the sun's out, Charizard would probably destroy us too. Venusaur would do the same because it's got one-turn Solar Beam. It's got Giga Drain. This isn't a battle that can simply be waited out or stalled in any way, shape or form. Leftovers wouldn't be helping us here anyway. The moves we can do in our current state aren't going to save us either. Just set up on Pikachu and sweep? Not possible. We could set up every single Sword Stance we have and it wouldn't matter. Why? Because we'd be outsped. And then we'd be one-shot. So what we have to do is go through this entire battle without taking a hit, while one-shotting everything else basically. And we can't use Sword Stance. Yep, and that is about the long and short of the whole thing. So what is the answer? Well, I knew the answer way back at the start of the run, and it's the reason why I thought it would be feasible in the first place. While thinking about that, I obviously blocked out how much of a pain the entire run before Red would be, but these things are always a journey of discovery. Okay, so what is the move? What's the plan? I'll give you a hint. It's not a TM. It's a move that Groudon learns via level up. Any idea? If you said Ancient Power, you'd be correct. But Ancient Power's a 60 base power special move. How's that going to help? Because 10% of the time, Ancient Power procs a one-stage boost to all of Groudon's stats. Most importantly, its speed. The plan is, go into battle against the Pikachu and keep using Ancient Power until we get that first turn boost. Let's just do the fight. So we're up against Pikachu. Its only effective move is Iron Tail, which will do about a quarter. We've lined up an Ancient Power, which hits, and then we get that boost. Now, as long as we outspeed Pikachu, it's all good. And next turn, we do. So we set up a Sword Stance, tank a hit that now does barely anything, and on the very next turn, use another Sword Stance. We are at +5 attack now. For the next turn, we'll go for Earthquake. And of course, that's going to flatten Pikachu. Now, for the rest of the battle, we can just sit back, pressing the confirm button, tap on the screen if you like, but not one of his Pokemon, even when we switch to Thunderbolt for Charizard, is able to survive. And that's Red. Kind of a little anticlimactic at the end there, but I'd like to think that instead of the major spike in difficulty being with Red, he kind of shared the love around the rest of the game. Unlike other minimum battles runs, I had no idea which fights would end up being a lot tougher than they usually are, so it was a nice change of pace. I think without Sword Stance and maybe the Bright Powder along with Ancient Power, obviously, the run would just not have been possible. But hey, maybe you could have made the run even easier. Feel free to let me know if you have an idea for an interesting run in the same style, let me know. And if you want to like and subscribe, go for it. Until next time, have a good one.